you first got that script?
Oh, the writers, Frank Cardia and George Schenck, they rather created the character of Anthony DiNozzo Sr., and they produced the show. And when I got the script, I just thought, what an opportunity for such character revelation for Anthony DiNozzo Sr. It was a wonderful, wonderful moments they gave me in that structure of that story, and the words were so good, and I had worked with the director before, and then they cast the woman, she was so great, Melora Walters, she played the woman that comes over to me and thinks that I'm her father, and I thought she was exceptional. It seemed like it all worked, That was everybody seemed to be at the top of their game.
I agree, and the nice thing about this story was you had the mystery to solve. You had the typical elements of an NCIS with a mystery to solve, but just the resolution of it, and just such a touching ending.
Oh, it was so well written, that ending. I liked that very much, and they wrote that all out. Where they had the camera move in on Michael at the end of that sequence, so that he had overheard what I said, and a lot of what I said was things that were happening in our relationship in a way, So it was on the structure of it was, I thought, so well thought out, and the director, he was so good, and I love doing NCIS. It's one of the highlights of my career, and Mark is such a wonderful man, runs such a good company, and everybody really cares for each other. That's one of the reasons I think that the show is so successful, Chris. I think that everybody feels so strongly about one another, and usually in the as in that show, everybody is paid off. All the characters are resolved, and it's really a very exceptional piece of writing.
I'm glad you mentioned Mark Harmon. When I was watching this, it reminded me, really, I think, I'm sure you get along really well because the two of you remind me of each other. You're both people that have been on television for a long time, but there's a reason for that, and that is you're so likable that the audience wants to welcome you into their homes week after week.
Well, the audiences have been great for me over the years. I've had tremendous response and loyalty from them, and Mark is a very exceptional man. I like him very much, and we go back a ways, and he runs a wonderful company, and I have the greatest of respect for him, and I just love going to work. I love that company. It's great.
And Michael Weatherly, you've obviously had a lot of scenes with him as your son over the years. What's he been like to work with?
My illegitimate son, yes. Oh, he's great. Our chemistry worked very well, over the years, and I really have enjoyed working with him. He's a very special young man, and I have great affection for him.
I would think, as an actor, whenever you're playing somebody over your career, whether they were playing your parent or in this case him playing your son, that's a whole different kind of relationship, I would think, especially over time, for an actor to build with another actor that's beyond just an acting job.
That's very true, Chris. I think that, for instance, the show that we're talking about, Reasonable Doubts, when I came up to do it, I live in Colorado and I fly over into Los Angeles and come in a few days early and get, the wardrobe and all of it. And this time when I came in, I stayed out in Valencia where they make the show, and Michael came out and rehearsed with me on Sunday so we rehearsed our scene, so we had it pretty well locked up before we went in. It was a very nice gesture on his part, and we seem to work very well together. The chemistry works, I feel, very, very strongly, and it's not too difficult for me because I really have great affection for him, you know, and I love him like a son, truly.
Well, he's leaving at the end of this season. Are you part of that, part of his finale, or can you say?
Yes, I am. As a matter of fact, last night was the finale. That was his last scene in the show. And yes, we worked together yesterday, and I was there for his leaving, and it was a very melancholy evening, I must say. I mean, everybody was very, very sad. There was a lot of, you know, emotional feelings on the set.
And with him being gone, will that mean that there's no way to bring you back down the road in season?
Well, they're talking about bringing me back, which I would welcome very much. And they haven't told me how they're going to do that, but I've been with the show now 6 years. I didn't realize I've been with it that long, and I've loved every moment of it. And great company, wonderful people to work for, and I'm hoping that they do find something to bring me back, because I would welcome it very much.
Well, I think it wouldn't be difficult because you don't have just scenes with him. All the other characters know your character, interact with your character, so and you live in that area in terms of where they work. So I think that would be an easy thing to do.
I hope so. I've had a pretty good relationship with Leroy Gibbs, so you know that's worked out well.
I want to ask you about a couple of things in your career, if you don't mind. I'm a huge Heart to Heart fan. I've got not only do I have the DVDs, but it comes on one of the channels here a lot, and I always catch myself catching it there. Why did that show work? Why do you think it was so successful?
Well, we stole it. You know, it's the Thin Man, and right down to the dog. And Tom Mankiewicz, who really created it and wrote it and put it together, and was the creative consultant on the show. Chris, I think the chemistry between Stephanie and myself worked, and the people believed us, and they believed that we had this great love affair for each other, and we did, and it worked, and so we were able to that's very helpful in the writing. And we had Mark Crowley, who was a wonderful writer, and Tom, who wrote the pilot, and as I said, was the creative consultant. It was a wonderful experience. I loved doing it. We did it for 5 years, and then we did 6 two-hour movies, and the relationship really sustained. And I had some great fun doing it. We had some great people on it, and wonderful directors and wonderful writers, and Stephanie was a tremendous contributor, and it was a big disappointment to us when it wasn't picked up. You know, we played it for 5 years. It played all over the world in 148 countries. It was very successful, and the network had a change in their executive people, and they decided they wanted to put their things on the air, and we were gone. But we were planning. We had the 6th year all in place. We were going to go to Paris, and we had a wonderful opening show there with the Freeway. You know, the dog, he fell in love with a French poodle. And that was a pretty good plot, you know.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you just a quick personal story. I was in high school during part of the run of that, and I had a teacher, Mrs. Crabb, who's no longer with us, but she probably was the biggest Heart to Heart fan I've ever known in my life. And it aired on Tuesday nights, right? On Wednesdays, if we wanted to get her off the subject and you know, have a kind of a free day in class, all we had to do was bring up Heart to Heart from the night before, and she would talk about it the entire hour.
That's great. That's great. Mrs. Crabb, that's good. I like that.
This is so coincidental, too, that you and I are talking today. I told a friend of mine back maybe 3 months ago or so how much we were talking about shows that we missed that we never could see. They weren't on DVD or airing anywhere. And I said, you know, when I was a kid, there was this show called Switch. He said, oh, I've got all those episodes. I recorded them when they aired on TV. I said, well, if you send them to me, I've been watching Switch for like the past 3 months with you and Eddie Albert. Was that a fun show to make?
Love doing it. Love doing it, Chris. And we had Charlie Callis on it. He was great, and Sharon. That was Sharon's first. Sharon Gless's.
Yeah, long before she won all those Emmy awards.
Yeah, and we had a wonderful time. It was really good, and Eddie was great, and I thought that relationship worked out pretty well with Glenn Larson, and Glenn had produced It Takes a Thief, another show that I did earlier on. Mrs. Crab didn't see that, I guess.
Oh, I bet she did. She was a Robert Wagner fan too.
Oh, that's good.
Eddie Albert was one of my favorites just all these years. Was he a good scene partner? Was he a good person to work things out with?
Wonderful, wonderful. He always came in with great ideas. He was always thinking of making it fresh, trying to find something new. And I had it was a great pleasure for me and a fortunate thing for me to be able to work with Eddie for that period of time. And he was a very special guy, a very special human being. We had a lot of fun together.
Well, I'm probably the only one asking you Switch questions these days, but honestly, I'm probably up to like episode 40 or something. But you've always been good, whether it was It Takes a Thief or a couple of your film roles or Switch, playing that con man with a heart kind of a role. Those are always fun for me to watch.
Yeah, that's a good role. That's a good role to have because you can do a lot of different things with it. You can get off of you can kind of lose your character in that. You know what I mean?
Well, and especially a show like Switch, you're playing because every week's a different con game against the villain. I mean, you're constantly getting to play really all kinds of different characters.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. There's a bit of a con in Tony DiNozzo Sr. too. I kind of trying to keep that going a little bit, keep that alive. That you quite don't know what he's going to do or what he has done. Well,
that's true. They've never fully explained everything, and he can be a different kind of a person to different people as he approaches them.
Right. It's very well written. As I was telling you before, Frank Cardia and George Schenck really created this character, and it's been a wonderful opportunity for me to play, and I've enjoyed being on this and involved with this show so much. And it is so popular. I went to Romania. I was doing a film there with Glenn Close, and as I was leaving, I was in the lounge of the airport in Bucharest, and these women, a lot of women were there, and they said, "Oh, Anthony DiNozzo Sr., how are you? It's so wonderful to see. How is Tony? How is everybody?" I mean, they were so into the show, and that was only like about 6 months ago. I was there 4 months ago. It was amazing. The power of television. It's incredible all over the world, and as you know, and as we said, it's the number one show in the world, and I think that one of the reasons that is because I feel that all the characters that are involved in the show really care for each other, Chris, and they have a love and affection for each other, and they've been together for a long time, and it's a family. It's a family, and Mark keeps that family together very, very well. I have great admiration for him.
Yeah, he seems like he's a great guy, not only behind the scenes, but it probably I'm sure he's in his personal life as well.
Yeah, he's a very, very upstanding and very, very good person.
Well, a couple more just quick questions. We're an awards website, so I would just love to know. You've been in the industry a while, and between film and television, what's your first big award show memory? What's a fun award show memory that you recall from the past?
It pops into my mind. I went to the Academy Awards with Daryl Zanuck in the 50s. And I was so excited about being at the Academy Awards. And he won the Gene Herschel Award. And when he came off the stage and came back to his seat, as I remember, he handed me the award. I was holding it for him. And I thought, oh, God, this is great. This is fabulous. Because he had won so many awards, and I think he won another award that night for a film. So I was holding on to the Gene Herschel Award, which was very, very exciting. Now that you're asking that question, that came into my mind.
Okay. Are you an Oscar voter?
Yes, I am. Huh?
Every time I've got an Oscar voter on one of these chats, I always like to ask this, and you can be general if you want to, or specific. But I always like to ask when you've got that nomination ballot in your hands, or you've got that final vote in your hands for winners. You know, you've studied this craft, you've been in this business a long time. Just 3 months, what performance are you looking for that'll get the Robert Wagner vote?
Well, there's been so many great performances by people, and if I'm moved by it, I'm not so convinced by all of the hype about the voting part of it. I'm more moved by the honesty of the performance and by the actor, and that's what I really try to say too. And I don't, I'm not. It's my own feeling, I'm not convinced by a lot of advertisements and a lot of hype, which does come out when the voting does take place. I try to be as honest as I can, and sometimes I pick the right ones.
Yeah, so you're not necessarily just going with a front runner that might have won other awards. You're somebody that moves you or maybe takes you to another place.
Absolutely, that's the way I try to keep it.
Well, you moved us on this episode of NCIS this season. I'm thoroughly hoping those Emmy voters out there, as they get their ballots, will remember you, and maybe we'll see you as a nominee over in the summertime.
Well, I hope so too, Chris. It would be wonderful. Be a great thing, wouldn't it? It would be wonderful. It would be terrific.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure for me too, and I wish you all the best, and you take care of yourself, and I hope we see each other again.